Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fourth talk on the Yoga Sutras by Dr. K.S. Balasubramanian. I'd just like to welcome him and you. I'm speaking in the introductions for Michael Slober, who is a Sanskrit scholar with the Department of Global Humanities and Religion, who is the co-sponsor of these series of talks. First, we have a few announcements. We would like to acknowledge that our university's main campus is situated on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish people who have lived in this area since time immemorial. We express our deepest respect and gratitude to our indigenous neighbors for their enduring care and protection of these lands and waterways. This lecture series was organized by the Global Humanities and Religions Department, which emphasizes interdisciplinary humanities, cultural history, and the study of religion, ancient to modern and around the globe, with attention to cross-cultural interaction. We would like to thank the Alumni Association for their partnership in making this happen, as well as support from the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, the Anthropology Department, and the College of Fine and Performing Arts. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, you may use the Zoom Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom middle of your screen. We will save all the questions till the final 10 minutes or so, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. So now I'd like to introduce myself, Penny Hutchinson, Associate Professor of Dance at Western. And I'd like to welcome you to the fourth session of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali with Dr. Balasubramanian from Chennai. He is our esteemed guest. He's the Deputy Director of the Kupaswamy Sastry Research Institute in Chennai, South India. He holds an MA in Sanskrit, a PhD in Hatha Yoga, and a PhD in Yoga, as well as 35 years working with postgraduate researchers. He has attended international conferences and taught in Europe and the US. He has won many awards in his studies and has 9 books currently being published. We are so grateful to have such an eminent person to guide us. His encouragement and kindness led to my treasured studies with his colleague, Dr. T.V. Vasudeva, on the Natya Shastra, a 5,000-year-old text on music, dance, and theater. And he's opened up many new possibilities for me through his colleagues and knowledge. Thank you. Sanskrit literature shares ancient wisdom that is very applicable to today's world. I sincerely hope that others may become interested in the world of Sanskrit and find the resources to help them live in the best way possible. I would also like to give special thanks to the director of the Institute, Dr. V. Kamaswari, and fond greetings to all the people who work at the Institute who helped me in so many ways. You'll be my first stop when I am able to travel. And thank you so much to Dr. K.S. Balasubramanian for taking time out of a hugely busy schedule to do these sessions. We appreciate you so much. May all benefit from our time together and spread this benefit to the world. The recordings of these sessions will be available on the WWU Alumni website. Thank you sincerely to all who have helped this dream come true: Dr. Michael Slober, Dr. Kimberly Lin, Chair of Global Humanities and Religions, and Janine Bengtson, Director of Western Alumni, and many others who gave us encouragement to have these talks. Please feel invited into the world of the great sage Patanjali, whose sutras have been inspiring people for thousands of years. Thank you, and over to Dr. Balasubramanian.
Ahara viharasya yuktacheshtasya karmasu yuktasvapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. This is a verse from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says that yoga would remove all the pains, miseries, sufferings. When does it happen? Lord Krishna says, Yuktahara viharasya, for the one who is moderate with regard to his food, who is moderate with regard to his activities, entertainments, recreations, who is moderate with regard to all his actions, and then who is moderate with regard to his sleep as well as waking state. So, one who is having a perfect balance and moderation, then yoga is for him. This is what Lord Krishna says. It removes all the pains. Now, I will start with the usual prayer to the great Saint Patanjali. Yogena jittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya tu vaidyakena yoga karot tam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. I salute with folded hands the great Saint Patanjali, who removed the defects of the body, mind, and the speech by writing individual treatises on Ayurveda or medicinal science, namely Charaka Samhita, and then Yoga Sutra for the mind, and he wrote a great commentary on Ashtadhyayi of Panini called Mahabhashya, the great commentary, to remove the defects in the speech, because grammar, of course, is the most important thing when we want to converse with others. So with this prayer addressed to the great Saint Patanjali, I would now go to the fourth section of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. The third section or third pada, which was known as the Vibhuti Pada, Patanjali talked about some of the practices which may lead one to supernatural powers. These practices essentially consist of concentration, meditation, and absorption. Dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, the last three stages of the 8 limbs of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And Patanjali cautioned very wisely that one should not be carried away by the supernatural powers. One should go beyond them if he has the destination in his heart, in his mind. And what is the destination? Patanjali says it is Kaivalya, or remaining aloof, or not having attachment with this world or Prakriti. Therefore, he gave 2 prescriptions. One is discrimination called Viveka, and the other one is called Vairagya, which is known as non-attachment. Therefore, Patanjali is going to enlighten us what is the state of mind, how the power of the mind, and also how we can reach to the highest position as prescribed in Yoga Sutras by him. So the fourth pada, or the last section of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, is named as Kaivalya Pada. Kaivalya means Kevalasya Bhavaha. Kevala means only. So Kaivalya means only one thing, that is remaining aloof, where the self alone exists without having any contact or association or union with anything else, where only the self or the Purusha, to use yogic parlance, it alone exists there. Patanjali gives ways and means for it in the first and the second padas, or the sections of Yoga Sutra. Now he is going to give the result or the effect or the efficacy, what we are going to get out of the yoga practice. Now, in the third pada, we saw many supernatural powers And in the fourth pada, Patanjali starts with the first sutra that these supernatural powers are possible by 5 means. He says, he starts this fourth pada or the section by giving this sutra, Janma, Aushadhi, Mantra, Tapa, Samadhijaha, Siddhayaha. These siddhis are these supernatural powers are born out of these 5 things, namely birth. First one is birth. There are some rare human beings or special personalities who are from their birth, who have got these supernatural powers. And in Indian mythology, we have got so many examples for this. For example, the life of Lord Krishna, he was having a lot of supernatural powers from birth itself. And then Aushadhi. Aushadhi means medicine. Through the application of some medicines, it is possible to attain some supernatural powers. And then mantra. Mantras are the incantations or special words. The word can consist of a single syllable or 2 syllables or group of words, which is known as mantra. Mantra by definition means mananat trayate, that which protects a person because of its being contemplated upon. Therefore, it is known as mantra. There are some mantras which can give supernatural powers or different supernatural powers according to its application. And then fourth one is, of course, we have seen that tapaha, austerity, penance or deep meditation, that will also lead to supernatural powers. And then the final one is samadhi or absorption, the final stage of yoga. And when we are absorbed deeply within ourselves, so many supernatural powers arrive at the person on their own accord. So these are the 5 methods through which one can attain the supernatural powers according to Patanjali. Then Patanjali gives a very interesting sutra. In modern science also we can apply this. Jatyanta parinamaha prakritya purat. What he means by this sutra is the transformation, or rather the transmutation of a species or an object into another class, another object, another species is happening or can happen through the overflowing or filling up of the prakriti or the natural tendencies. What does he mean by that? One class or one species can get itself transformed into another one, altogether a new one. How is it possible? So it is not just like the water transforming into an ice cube. It is only the change in the state of its being. Water remains in the liquid form, whereas the ice remains in the solid form. When it evaporates, it remains in a different dimension. But it is not what we mean. Then we have got gold, we have got gold bangles. So many ornaments can be made from gold. Or the necklace. If I want to make the gold into something else as an ornament, then it is only a transformation, but it is only a state which is changing. That is from one state of a very solid one to another chain or a circular or whatever object that we are interested in. Therefore, this is not what is known as the transmutation. What we mean, what Patanjali means here is the object itself changes into another one. For example, iron can be, or stone can be turned into a gold. It has happened. We call it alchemy in chemistry, and we have got umpteen number of literature in Sanskrit as well as in Tamil written by great Siddhas, and there are many methods advocated by these great saints how to make an ordinary iron piece or a stone into gold or something else. So how is it possible? How can one make like that? Then Patanjali says the object should have the potentiality to transmute or transform itself into another one. Unless the object has the potentiality, it cannot transform. However, you teach a very, very dull person, he doesn't become a scholar. Now, there is a beautiful story in the Chandogya Upanishad, one of the major Upanishads belonging to the Samaveda in Indian tradition. There, the disciple known as Shvetaketu goes to his guru, who was his father himself. He approaches his father called Uddalaka or Aruni, and he asks him this question: Father, where from this great tree come? He sees a great tree, a big tree, let us say a banyan tree. Where does the tree come from? And the father says, you bring that fruit to me. So he brings the fruit. The father says, cut it. What do you find? Flesh, sir. Cut it. What do you find? The seed, sir. Cut it. What do you find? Nothing, sir. And the father says, oh, Shvetaketu, out of this comes the great banyan tree. Now, we all know that not all the seeds become plant or grow into trees. There should be the potency or potentiality inside the seed to germinate, to become the plant, and then have stem, branches, leaves, flowers, fruits, everything. And it goes into a big tree. No, without potentiality or potency, the seed cannot germinate. In the same way, if the mind is to be transformed or it has to evolve into a higher human being, a perfect human being, or a divine human being, it should have that potency. Therefore, not all become great scholars or scientists or saints for that matter. You should have that potency. Then we should make or we should apply, we should make use of it in the right direction. Therefore, Patanjali gives what happens. The direction is very important. Therefore, in the very next sutra, Patanjali says, or he gives a hint that what happens to the potentiality is actually the hurdles in the path which prevent the object from changing or transforming or transmuting into another object. The hurdles are removed, and now the object becomes what it has to become. How is it possible? Patanjali gives a very simple example for it. He uses the farmer, F-A-R-M-E-R, farmer, who is plowing the field. Now, we have seen in the paddy fields, for example, there are, bunds made in different places. What the farmer does is, the water is flowing through canals or some channels. What he does is, he just breaks the bund, small raised platforms of mud, and then he makes the water flow through on the left side. And when the sufficient water has flown through the left side, he closes that gap with the mud and removes the bund on the right side and makes the water flow on the right side. Now what happens is, the water is the same. The water has been flowing in the straight canal or the channel, but when the mud or the bund is broken at a particular place, the water takes altogether a different direction. And in the same way, if it is allowed to flow on the left or the right side, the water flows. And we should remember, water is the same, but that only the direction is changed. Therefore, the hurdle or the obstacle in the form of the in the form of the mud or the bund, it is only removed so that the water can flow in altogether a different channel. So it is what happens in yoga. In what way it is, used in yoga, or in what way it is connected to yoga, related to yoga. It is that our mind is also like that. We are applying our mind on different things in this world. If our mind is channelized, the potency of the mind is channelized and applied or directed towards the Purusha or the inner self, then it takes altogether a new direction or orientation. I am not dropping the speed of the car. I am only changing the direction of it. In mathematics, they say it is just like a parabola. Parabola is just like the water is flowing down and then it is going up. In the same way, the tendencies of the mind which are going towards the worldly objects, now they are turning towards the upper or the higher objects. Therefore, it is the mind. You see, what is the use of just removing the obstacles? And then it is just like treating the symptoms when I have a disease. When I go to the doctor, if the doctor diagnoses some problem, he is treating the symptom and temporarily I may get relief. But the root cause has to be removed. And then I will not have the disease further. Therefore, when surgery is done, they go to the root and remove the defect in the body. In the same way, what is the root cause of all the miseries? All the texts on Indian philosophy say it is only due to the mind. Therefore, our Upanishads say, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayoho bandhaya vishayasaktam muktiyai nirvishayam smudam. It is the mind which is the cause of all the problems. It is the cause for also the liberation or salvation, as you may call it. But the difference is when the mind is applied, oriented, directed, attached towards the worldly object, it is the bondage. If the mind is released from it, if the mind is non-attached from the worldly substances, then the mind goes towards the liberation. This is the main difference, how we apply the mind. Therefore, Patanjali gives this sutra to say that the potentiality of the mind should be used in its full. Then Patanjali says, very interestingly, we are all talking of artificial intelligence. This is also like that. Patanjali says the yogi of caliber can create artificial minds. Beautifully, he uses the word artificial or subsidiary minds, and he makes use of these minds. That is, one main mind is there, the boss is there, and he can create many minds and then engage these minds to perform different activities. He is in such a control over the mind that this mind can appoint subsidiaries, like the boss appoints the people in his office to do many errand works. But the job is only for the boss. In the same way, in our body, all the faculties or the sense organs gather information, but they all report to the brain. The brain is the boss, and the brain makes everything done through its subordinates, not by itself. Therefore, in the same way, the mind, the chief mind, or you can call the main mind, can appoint many subsidiaries and get things done. And then, what are the things that can be done? Many activities. What are these? We call them karma or actions. Then Patanjali leads us towards the different sorts of actions. He categorizes actions into 4 main divisions. Wonderfully. Very simple sutra. He says, karma, akrishna, ashuklam, trividam yoginaha, trividam iteresham. He says the action is, for yogis it is different. For other people it is threefold. What is it? Patanjali says, for the yogis or yogi of a caliber, it is neither black nor white, but it is of 3 types for the others. What is it? Krishna in Sanskrit means black. So by black, what we mean is wickedness, vices, or that which harms other people, hurts other people, which bring sufferings or pains to oneself as well as the other beings. And by Shukla, white, what we mean is noble acts such as penance, or charity, or self-study, or the study of the scriptures, meditation, things like that. This also is described in our scriptures as white action. And There are actions which are neither white nor black. For example, we do so many things, performance of sacrifices or so many actions, which may be neither good nor bad. Because what is good for me need not be good for the other. What is painful for me may be a pleasure for other person. When I do certain things, it may be a pleasure or it may bring happiness to me, but it may cause, the contrary or sufferings to some other being. This is known as the combination of black and white. So the worldly people have these three sort of things. In our Upanishads also, for example, Mahanarayana Upanishad says what we should do with these actions. What the yogis Patanjali says, it is neither black nor white, because he is not attached with either the result of the action or with the action itself. He just performs. Like when I put on the switch, the fan works, the AC works, the light burns, but it does not get any samskara or impression out of its act. It just works. It just implicitly follows my instruction. In the same way, the mind also works. So what are the actions? Why should one not have attachment with that? So the Upanishad, Mahanarayana Upanishad says, Na karmanana prajaya jane natyage naike amritatva manasuhu parena kam nihitam guhayam bhibrajade tat yatayo vishanti vedanta vijnana sunischitartha sanyasa yoga yataya shuddha sattva te brahmaloke tu para antakale paramritat parimuchanti sarve. What it says in nutshell is, not through progeny, not through wealth, not through any action, one can enter the realm of God, the sphere of God, the heaven of God. It is only by non-attachment, leaving out the result or not having attachment with the result. This is the path of the great saints, and they found it within themselves. By going deeply within their heart, finding the self therein, they become pure by not attaching themselves with the actions or the result of the action. This is what Patanjali also says in the Bhagavad Gita. The crux or the message of Bhagavad Gita is this, that one should perform action. You should not abstain from performing action or your duty, but you should do it in such a way by which you cannot or you will not have any results or the impressions thereof, which Lord Krishna calls nishkama karma. When I perform action with desire, with passion, I get the results thereof. When I do the same action without having any result or without expecting any result or without having attachment with the results, then the same act is performed in a better way. This is what Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita. And then Patanjali says, by performing action, what happens? Patanjali says, by performing these actions only, the impressions get manifested according to the favorable condition. Not merely, the action is not merely important. The condition, the favorable condition, what we call the surroundings, the atmosphere, the environment, which induce a person to perform action. That is also important. I think Dr. Penny would find it interesting. In Natya Shastra also, we can find parallel explanations for this. How does a person experience a sentiment? I go to see a horror movie. Okay. For example, I have seen the movie called Exorcist when I was in college. Now, what happens is, it is a horror movie, and in many places we get a feeling of fear. And to add to that horror or fear, then they project darkness. And the darkness is there, and then there will be a sound to add a dramatic element to it, like that, then the sense of fear is increasing in me, and then there will be some footsteps, like a person, they will show only the shoe, and then a person walking. So we are at the end of the seat or the tip of the seat having some sort of expectation or suspense. So in this way, the main thing is to be expressed is the fear and horror. But these things, the darkness, the music, and then the sound of the footsteps, these are all called the stimulants. They stimulate the basic feeling a person has, what we call the Sthayi Bhava in Natya Shastra. So these basic things are called the samskaras or vasanas in yoga, and these get manifest when the situation or the atmosphere is appropriate for it. For example, when I see some object, either I like it or I don't like it or I am against it. Okay. What happens is, for example, I may get angry. I told my master once I got angry. So he said, the anger came out. See, the anger is already within me. The desire is already within me. Ravana was having the desire, but on seeing Rama's wife Sita, it came out. The same way, on seeing something or with somebody else, the anger which is in me or disgust which is in me is manifested outside. Therefore, this is known, according to Rabbi Babuji Maharaj, blossoming of the samskaras. The samskaras are already there. They are waiting for the proper environment or the surroundings. And then when these things come together, these samskaras or the vasanas or the impressions, they get manifested. So these are all blossoming. And what is inside comes out. Therefore, Patanjali says, this is only according to the situation. Whether it is film or whether it is in our daily life, we have so many sentiments or moods because of the circumstances which stimulate a person to react. And why should such things take place? Patanjali says, these are there from time immemorial. These things come to us because of our desire to cling on to life, and our desire to live for a longer time also is immemorial. We cannot say precisely when this desire to cling on to this life started. The moment I am born, and I am growing, I want to live for a longer time. This is common for all the beings in this world. And there are a lot of stories for it in our epics. So this makes us to perform more and more action, to get more and more comforts, or to live in a suitable environment with all sort of comforts or protections. Therefore, we indulge in action, and therefore we get into the mire of samskaras, or the what in modern terminology it is called karma. In real sense, karma means only action. The result of the action are the impressions. Therefore, Patanjali says these things, these impressions or the vasanas are to be destroyed, because these are the causes. Unless these vasanas or the samskaras or the impressions are removed, it is just like a pond of water, where it is just like a swimming pool. You imagine a swimming pool in an Olympic game or any game for that matter. The bottom is also very important. When I peep through the water, the bottom is visible, as we can see from our screens. Then the bottom is impure. When the bottom is impure, then you cannot see the water. Is not transparent, because the water is good, but because of the dust that it contains, because of the dirts that it contains, we are not able to peep through. Therefore, we are not able to see the self or Purusha. Therefore, Patanjali says we should go to the root and to the mind and remove all these root causes. And what is the cause of these samskaras or the vasanas? Patanjali said, even in the second pada, it is avidya or ignorance. Due to ignorance, I do so many things. What is ignorance? Patanjali says, taking non-eternal to be eternal. We think, our belongings, whether it is house or relations or anything for that matter, they are all eternal, but absolutely not. We all have some specific period of time. Anything for that matter, whichever is created has to undergo destruction. Therefore, we take generally non-eternal things to be eternal. And what causes pain ultimately to me, I take it to be pleasure. Any food for that matter, if I overeat, it may be pleasant to me at that time, but ultimately it may lead me to pain. And what causes, what is impurity, I take it to be pure. You know, there is absolutely no thing in this world which is absolute purity. Therefore, Patanjali is very clear. God is the only pure thing in this world, or the principle in this world where only purity exists. Therefore, that is also there. And what is, self, we take it, non-self, what is not attached with the self, we think they are part of me. For example, the house, the pen, you can go on telling. These are all external objects compared to the self. And this is because of the ignorance of attaching everything to the self that causes all the pains, all the samskaras, or the impressions. So therefore, Patanjali says, all these objects appear to us. They are not permanent. Why do they appear in different colors, in different hues, in different forms? Even the person who is seeing the same object repeatedly may see it with different perspective every time he sees it. And Patanjali says it is because of the colored vision. The object may remain the same because my mind is colored, my sense organs may be defective, and my mind, see, for example, I may be going on talking. If the mind is not applied, the people will not be able to get the real meaning out of it. Whatever it is, whether it is hearing or it is an object, if the mind is colored, what we call in heartfulness prejudice. If I have a prejudice over a person, then I get only a colored vision. It is just like wearing a colored glass or a black glass or a blue glass or a red glass and viewing this world, then the world appears as such. For a person who is having a black color spectacle, the world appears to be in black color. Like that, the mind, when the mind is colored or when it is having the samskaras or the vasanas, the reality is hidden from us. So according to the coloring of the mind, the object also appears for that person. For example, it is said, the first ice cream may taste very nice. The second one, not so much. The third, fourth one, you get saturated. No, we don't have the same taste. The ice cream is the same, but because I'm used to it, because of the coloring of the mind, then I lose the taste which I had when I ate the first ice cream. In the same way, there are different minds we have to accept. Patanjali says there are as many minds as there are the species or the purushas in this world, because the mind, what I perceive need not be the same for the other person. For example, the rose, it may be a pleasant object to me. For the other person, he may not like rose. For yet another person, some days he may like, some days he may not like. It is because of the mood of the person. This is what Patanjali says. It is because of the conditioning or the mood of the person. And therefore, because people see the objects in this world in different ways, there should be many minds. And is the mind boss? Patanjali says, no. The mind is not self-luminous. The mind has a boss, namely the consciousness. It is the consciousness, the soul, the self, or the Purusha, as he says, is the ultimate thing which controls the mind, and the mind has to report it to the consciousness. Just like in the film, we are running through the films, but ultimately the screen has to be clean, pure, and in the screen everything is projected for all of us to see, whatever film that we want to see. In the same way, within us we have a screen. Therefore, in the dream also, we are able to see so many things. We are able to hear so many things. We experience pleasure, pain, etc. without our sense organs being involved. The mind is at work during our sleep, but if the consciousness is not there, basic screen is not there, we shall not be able to experience all these things. Therefore, the mind is an agent. The mind is only subordinate. The mind is only an instrument for the consciousness or the Purusha or the self. Therefore, it acts as the subordinate one. So when does a person overcome all these things? Patanjali says, the one who has realized that the knower and the known, that is the subject, that's myself, and the object, that is outside me, they are different, they are distinct. Then he gets the real knowledge. That is, he feels that this self within me, this consciousness within me, the soul or the Purusha within me is completely different from what I perceive, the perceivable objects, that is the external world. Prakriti, as we saw, is different from Purusha. This leads one to the distinction or the discrimination of the highest order. So Patanjali says, for the mind which is established in distinction, which is known as discrimination, or in Sanskrit we call it as viveka, then this mind moves towards the destination which is known as kaivalya, according to Patanjali, where, as I told you in the beginning, kevala means remaining aloof, that is not getting attached with the external world, not physically remaining aloof, going into the forest, not like that. Mentally, you may be performing all the acts as a wife or a husband or a son or a daughter or a teacher or a student, but yet I am not attached with all these things. Then slowly I am evolving towards the perfection. This is what Patanjali says. And then what happens during other times? We saw in the first pada itself. Why is it not happening to us? So Patanjali said in the third sutra of the first section of the yoga of his book, he says, Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam, when the tendencies of the mind, the modifications of the mind are completely arrested, then it rests with the self. When the mind is completely engaged, or it is established in the self or the Atma or the Purusha, then there is no other object. It becomes consciousness itself. Then what happens during other time? Why we are not able to feel it? Patanjali gave the fourth sutra, Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra. So here also he means that in the intervals, the mind takes the form of the modifications. For example, I may see so many things and I get attached with that. I hear or listen to many things. I taste many things. I touch many things, and I smell many things, or having the fragrance of many things. Therefore, the mind during the other time when it is not resting totally in the self, it gets attached with the activities of the sense organs. As Lord Krishna says, just like the wind forcibly taking away the boat in the water, the same way the consciousness is being driven away by the mind, which is attached with the sense organs, and the sense organs having association with the worldly things. So this is the example given by Lord Krishna also. The same thing Patanjali says, that when the mind is completely aloof from everything and rests in the self, these things will not happen. But does it mean that I should have attachment, or I should have a taste for this? Patanjali says, the one who does not have attachment even for this highest, that is the ultimate detachment or non-attachment, then that is known as, Patanjali uses another concept, which I shall tell you now. Patanjali introduces the concept called Dharma Megha Samadhi. Another term for the Nirbija or the highest Samadhi. Dharma is the principle or the property behind any object. And then Megha is cloud. You know what prevents us from seeing the sun? S-U-N? It is the cloud. Therefore, when the cloud is removed, when the obstacle or the intermediary object is removed, I am able to see the source. In the same way, Dharma Megha Samadhi, the highest form of Samadhi, which gives us the knowledge of the ultimate, where we feel that the self is nothing, but it is extremely pure, not having or unalloyed, not having any contact or association with the earthly object. When does it happen? Patanjali says, for a person who has the highest knowledge of the reality through meditation. This is technically known as prasankhya in Vedanta as well as in yoga. The person who has the glimpse or who is established in the highest knowledge through meditation, prasankhya, and when there is absolutely no interest or attachment or desire, even for the highest state. Shankara, while starting his commentary on the Brahma Sutras in Vedanta, gives this wonderfully. He says, Iha amutra phala bhoga viragaha. The person should have completely complete non-attachment with the objects not only of this world, but also of the other world. Supposing I am having a serious desire to get into the highest one in the spiritual realm also, it is also a desire like all other desire. So even Buddha said this desire should also go. Therefore, according to Patanjali, such a state where you don't have any desire at all, whenever there is desire, there is a seed. Therefore, there is a possibility of this seed to germinate, to become a plant under favorable circumstances. Therefore, Patanjali wants to eliminate that process. So he calls it nirbija. So this state is also known as without seed. And Patanjali calls it dharma megha samadhi, or the highest form of samadhi. Okay. What is the benefit of all these things? Why should I aspire for that? So Patanjali says, tataha klesha karma nivrittihi. When it happens, when a person is blessed with that, he is free. He is relieved from all the actions and also all the afflictions, sufferings, misery. That is the highest benefit. Not that he will not do any action. The actions that we perform will not bind him. So he is not affected by any actions. Consequently, there is no suffering for him. There is no misery for him. There is no affliction for him. Therefore, this is the highest benefit. When does it happen? Patanjali said, even in the first pada, he says that is known as, here he says, Tatah kritarthanam parinama krama samaptihi. What happens at that stage is, the person who is established, he is away from the prakriti consisting of three gunas. I told you in the first lecture, everything is within the realm of three gunas, namely sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva standing for all the noble things, calm, peaceful, everything, and rajas full of vigor, vitality, action, passion, like that. Tamas full of sloth, indolence, laziness. So anything in this world is subject to these three gunas, and then Patanjali says these will also retreat. These three also will go away from him for the person who is established in the highest form of samadhi. What happens then? In the first section, Patanjali said, Pratambara tatra prajna, that he does not require the sense organs for gaining any knowledge. So the knowledge comes from, to use Patanjali's words, truth bearing, Ritambhara, consciousness or the knowledge, prajna, is truth bearing or the right bearing. So it comes on its own. He need not go after it. It is just like, the gem, precious gem remaining in a shop. People go in search of it. It does not seek the owner. It does not go and beg people, please buy me like that. So in the same way, the consciousness, when it is established, the highest sense, everything comes to him. As Lord Krishna says, there is an ocean and it does not seek water. But the rivers, the waters from all the rivers pour into the ocean. In the same way, the person who is established in the self, the highest consciousness, all the gunas, all the actions, they cease to function and they rest in him voluntarily. So, Lord Krishna says in the Gita, what is the use of these Vedas or any scripture for that matter? So, he cautions Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigumyo Bhavarjuna. Oh, Arjuna, after all, the Vedas supposed to be the highest in Indian philosophy. After all, they pertain only to these three gunas. What they contain is restricted to the three gunas. But oh Arjuna, you should raise, you should go above all these three gunas. That is possible by following this yogic practice as advocated by Patanjali. Such is the method given by Patanjali. We have the open system where there is absolutely no restriction of caste, color, creed, sex, nationality. Patanjali never talks of all these things. His system is universal. It has opened new possibilities. Therefore, there have been so many commentaries on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, starting from Vyasa. Tradition alludes that it is the same Vyasa who compiled the Vedas, who wrote Mahabharata and all other texts. So Vyasa wrote a commentary on it, and then Shankara wrote a commentary on it, and then we have so many commentaries like Vachaspati Mishra, Bhoja, Vijnana Bhikshu. There are a team number of commentaries written on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, many people wrote subsequent texts, and the yoga got divided into many branches where Hatha Yoga became very prominent in this world today. By the very term Hatha, it is meant as force. When we are practicing the physical exercises or mental exercises, we are using the force. Therefore, it is known as Hatha Yoga, which is now being practiced the world over. Asanas, pranayama, purificatory, actions, and the Hatha Yoga has become world famous. And then there is Mantra Yoga, where mantras are given prominence. Patanjali also talked about Mantra Yoga when he said God is known through one mantra, namely the Pranava or Om. And then how to meditate on this, Patanjali said. And then we have got the Laya Yoga. Laya is nothing but merging two things, two objects, merging, becoming completely one. And yoga makes it possible. And then this system of Patanjali is generally known as Raja Yoga, the king among all the yogas. But in the ancient text, it is not called Raja Yoga, only Patanjala Yoga or Patanjala Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. But later on, I believe it is the 20th century, started by Swami Vivekananda, that he called it as Raja Yoga. It is known as Raja. Raja in Sanskrit means the king, the kingly element, the royal element within ourselves is the mind. It is the king of all the sense organs. Therefore, the system which uses the mind more than all other limbs, it is known as Raja Yoga, or the royal path, the royal secret, which Patanjali has opened for all of us. And all these other practices, the Hatha Yogic text says, Kevalam Raja Yogaya Hatha Yoga Upadishyate. For the sake of entering into Raja Yoga, even all the practices, whether it is pranayama, that is the breath control, or different postures, or different purificatory acts, everything is used only to enter into Raja Yoga. So, Sarve Hatalayopayaha Raja Yogasya Siddhaye. All these practices of other schools, namely Laya Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Hatha Yoga, they are all there only to enter into Raja Yoga, which Patanjali has given us, nutshell and later on the commentators start expanding it. So such is the avenue or the possibility opened by Patanjali in 195 sutras. In some editions there are 196 sutras, and some commentator has added one more to make it 197. Be it as may be, but what we are concerned is the possibility that this yoga can do to us. It caters to the need of a person at the physical level, at the mental level, at the intellectual level, and at the spiritual level. Therefore, yoga is not only universal, it integrates the body, mind, and the soul. It is it is not complex, it is very systematic. It encompasses every aspect of the human being. And when we have a competent teacher, competent guru, competent master to instruct us the practical aspects of this yoga, we shall also become great saint and performing the worldly activities simultaneously. Such an avenue or such an opening is given to all of us thanks to Patanjali, the great saint who lived thousands of years ago. And yoga system, as I told you, among all other schools of philosophy, is unique, it's very ancient, it is both theory and practice. Therefore, it is open for all of us to go. And here, I am the laboratory for myself. I did not seek any other person. I do research on myself. Therefore, it is called Swadhyaya, self-study. I need not depend on anything else. I go within myself and have the complete knowledge or consciousness of my own self. Such is the possibility of yoga. And I request all of you to give a trial to this. And I am sure you will all be benefited by it. There's nothing else to lose. Only all that is unwanted, which has to go, and all that is egoistic, that has to go, and only the purity should remain. That is the need of the hour of this world, where the world is broken up by fragments, into fragments by narrow domestic walls, wrote Rabindranath Tagore in Gitanjali, which earned him the Nobel Prize. So the world is now broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Yoga means union. It tries to bring an integration of everything. So in conclusion, I would like to thank respected Sister Dr. Penny and Dr. Michael and Sister Janine and all others who made it possible for me to share some of my views on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And last not least, all of you who have been listening to me patiently for 1 hour every week, I should thank all of you, and I hope we shall all take up the path of yoga. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much, Dr. K.S. Balasubramanian, for our 4 talks on the Yoga Sutras. Lots to digest. Doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment. I was wondering if you might speak a bit about, when you speak about, say, different saints or Buddha or saints, Indian saints, and compare and contrast across time, that there's some similarities about things that people say. How do you see this as happening? I mean, I think in America, we don't really have a lot of experience with this kind of information. So could you speak a little bit about where this comes from, the information that comes to different saints and they say things and there's a kind of a crossover that you hear repeated? You mentioned Krishna, Buddha, some other saints. It'd be lovely if you could just speak a little bit about that.
See, the word Buddha means enlightened. It was not his original name. His original name, as all of us know, is Siddhartha. He was a prince And you know these vasanas or Patanjali, what he says, the impressions. In his young age, when he went out for the first time in his chariot, he saw many things and he saw people suffering. Therefore, this was ingrained in him that the world was full of suffering. Therefore, he wanted to find out a solution where people can go beyond this suffering. And he found out that it is the means, only means is through meditation. But unfortunately, the followers gave more importance to the intellectual, arguments. That is how Indian philosophy developed. The original saints, as Bhakti Maharaj also said, they all meditated and found the truth, but at their level of understanding or level of approach in spirituality. And later on, whether it is Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, or the Buddha or Mahavira or any saint for that matter, they all realized by meditating. But later on, people started interpreting them, what we call the hermeneutics. They started interpreting these scriptures to suit their own philosophy, and therefore various hues and colors crept in, and more importance was given to the intellectual exercise to establish my school as superior over the other schools. And here the wood was lost for the forest, or as they say, So the reality was lost, only the intelligence or intellect gained the prominence. This is how we get so many views of Buddhism or Jainism or Sikhism, every saint for that matter. You will find that they all meditated and they advocated only peace and love. Whereas the problem came through the letter writers when they say it is my system which is superior. So the underground thing to be understood is the fundamentally what we have done is, because I follow this, it is my system, the I became prominent. My language, my God, my system, my culture. When this is going to be the stumbling block, or it is going to be a separating agent, then everyone claiming that this is mine like that. Therefore, Patanjali system is unique, that it integrates everything. You name any saint for that matter, knowingly or unknowingly, they have imbibed Patanjali's teachings.
Thank you so much for that answer. That was really enlightening. Well, I just am very reluctant to say goodbye because this has been such a dream of mine since for so long, and I'm just so grateful for your wisdom and knowledge helping us to understand these sutras. And I do have a few closing remarks here. Just want to thank you so much, and then thank the audience for joining us. Some of people will be, especially from Europe, will be joining after these are posted on the website. So thank you for supporting us. And we'd like to thank the Alumni Association for their partnership, and those of you who chose to support the Global Humanities and Religion Department as part of the lecture series. So a link to the recording of each lecture is emailed out after a few days. And as this is our last session, I just wanted to share a little personal something. When I first got interested in studying something Sanskrit, I was in New York and would go to a bookstore that had Indian books. And this was one of the first books that I bought. It's the story of Ram, basically the story of the Ramayana by the Tulsidas. And
it is not Sanskrit. I'm sorry, it is not Sanskrit.
Okay, but I just wanted to say that it started me kind of down this path of, every time I went to the bookstore, buying a book and beginning to explore further. And that sort of led me to you and to getting some studies on the Natya Shastra. So I just wanted to encourage people to start small and get interested in the Sanskrit studies. So thank you again so much. Sorry to say goodbye. And thank you, Janine, for helping us so much, and everyone, and have a good night. Hope to see you again.
Thank
Bye.
you.